Well, hey, welcome to the Beyond the Lines podcast. In a world filled with so much hate and division, we want to do something about that. We all have lines that we draw in our lives, and we feel like we put a limit out there. We can't listen past this line or this limit. We can't love past this line. We can't understand someone who's on the other side of the line. But our goal with this podcast is to treat all people with the dignity that they deserve, even if we disagree with them. So I'm Clayton Edelman. I'm one of the hosts of this podcast. And today I've got with me my friends who one of them forgot to introduce themselves a while back ago, but Jonathan Miller.
Jonathan.
Yep, that's my name.
All right.
Nobody knows it until now.
Well, good. Hey, now it's there. And then, of course, I've got Cal Jernigan with us, lead pastor of Central Christian Church. How you doing today, Cal?
Good, thanks.
Very good. Well, hey, for today's episode, wanted to talk about this idea of how do you love someone that is different than you? And, you know, I think it's a hard question because we've all been in challenging situations, right? Yeah. But Cal, I just wanted to start with you. Why do you think we should love people who are different than us?
Well, I would start by saying if you don't love people who are different than you, you're going to have a very small circle of people you love. And that's really, honestly, I think the problem that we're dealing with is as we've become more and more polarized as people, our circles get smaller and smaller. We only listen to those who say the same things. We live in these echo chambers we've talked about. We surround ourselves with people who every bias we hold, they confirm, and we curate our news so that they only tell us what we already know, what we already believe. And so what happens is the world just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and your experience as a person then is diminished. And I think the bottom line is, you get to the end of your life, and I've seen this happen to people. In fact, tragically, it happened to my mom. She got to the end of her life, and there's really nobody. And by the time you get to that age, if you're only going to hang out with people who are like you, the world is incredibly small. Now, most of us don't have the aging issue. We just have a mental thing that we put in place. And really what it comes down to is we're very uncomfortable with ideas that are not ours or concepts that we don't agree with. We always feel like we have to debate. We have to win the debate. We have to say the snarky, snappy thing that kind of shuts the conversation down. And I think it just destroys the opportunity to grow. And so I think you make a decision to love those who are different than you, so that you actually broaden your world and it gets bigger. And there's so much to learn that you don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said. Talking about circles. I can't imagine at the end of any of our lives that we want to imagine a scenario where no one's there for us, no one cares about us, no one loves us because we didn't spend the time to show that care, consideration, and love for others. Obviously Jesus calls us to love one another all the time. And you said something a while ago. I'll read it to you. It's this: the differences become the excuses of why we don't have to do what Jesus said. Can you just unpack that a little bit more for us?
Yeah. Well, and again, Jesus was very clear. If you only love those who love you, what reward do you have? What he was saying is everybody loves those who love them. That there is nothing noble, nothing virtuous, nothing challenging, nothing remarkable, nothing godly, nothing to love somebody who is just like you, who loves you back the way you love them. And why do you bother to love people? Well, again, if you're a follower of Jesus, you bother to love people because Jesus commanded you to love people. And it was a command. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't an option. It wasn't a, hey, if you have time, if this is something you can get around to, if you can kind of work it into your list of things to do, then you should try this. It was never in that context. It was a flat out command. As I have loved you, so you must love. And, tragically, so many of us take the things that Jesus said that, the things that are easy, we go, yeah, I can do that. The things that like that, and I always kind of laugh. I want to do a series someday on the things Jesus said that we don't think he meant. And all those would be the ones that we blow off. If you're going to give your gift to God and they're on the way to the altar, remember that you have something against, or somebody has something against you. Go reconcile that. Leave your gift. Go take care of that relationship, and then come and give your gift. Well, we go, come on, Jesus, you didn't mean that. I mean, come on. You know how many people are different than us that, don't like us and have an issue with us? And Jesus just give us these outs that we are so quick, to provide for ourselves. And you love because Jesus commanded it, and it's hard. It's hard. But truthfully, many of the things Jesus said, if you do those, they're hard. And yet somehow we're trying to make it convenient, simple, and non-threatening. Loving people is very threatening. It's scary.
Yeah. Well, and it's always easy to love those who are similar to you or like you. But I think you touched on that with, what good does it do if you're just hanging out with the fellow tax collectors or whatnot? Right. I mean, you're not extending your circle's reach by any means. And so if we do recognize that loving someone who's completely different than us is really hard, what's maybe a first step, or how do we get to a point where we can say, hey, I do love that person actually? Well,
I think the first step is you make your mind up that you're going to enter into that scary, frightening, threatening, intimidating, challenging, whatever word you want to put there. You're going to enter into that zone that says, I'm going to put my comfort aside for the sake of something greater than my comfort. And that, obviously at some point in this, we got to talk about fear, because fear is the greatest demotivator to, stepping into those relationships, stepping into those opportunities to actually engage with somebody who's different. And we fear the unknown. And we also tend to, not only do we fear the unknown, I think we magnify the unknown. We make, we make it so much bigger. It's such a bigger issue than it really is. But in our minds, we use that as just justification for, I just can't go there. It's just, and Jesus wouldn't want me to. And the truth is I think Jesus absolutely wants us to. We excuse ourselves from doing that. We don't want to go there. And we're just afraid.
Do you, so we're supposed to love people, right? And we're supposed to love all people. But I remember this saying my dad used to say, especially when I acted up and I was like a brat. He would say,
so you heard it a lot.
Yeah, so I heard it a lot.
It was just common.
Like my dad always said,
just like every day. No, he didn't. But he would say, I love you, but I really don't like you right now. Do we have to like people that we love? Like, is there a distinction there? Or?
I don't know. I think that there probably is. Because you're not called to go, like whatever you do that, you say, I love doing this. Like personally, I love to fish. I love to fish doesn't mean that I'm going to put people in the boat with me that I don't like. That are just they're just different or whatever. So I don't think it's an issue of collecting to your boat all the kinds of people that you just know. Conversations are difficult, they're challenging, and spend the things you love with people you don't like. Now, at the same time, I don't think he never said like everyone you come in contact with. But love is much deeper. It's a much greater commitment on your part than just liking somebody. And I do think you have the preference. I don't think Jesus took away your preference to go, I prefer these people to these people. These people are I get along with them. I get them. They get me. They're easy. That's the people you like. The people you love, you make a commitment that goes way beyond that. And it's a non-negotiable, I think, when it comes to being a Christ follower. You will yourself to love because I'm a committed believer. I will do what Jesus asked me to do. And he doesn't ask you to go, whatever your recreational thing you like to do that with all kinds of people you don't, tend to want to hang out with. He didn't say that. But the commitment is that you got to love. Now, I would take that a step further and say, you're really making headway. You're getting there. You're moving when you're willing to put somebody in your boat and you go, you know what, this could be rough. This could be a tough day. But that's just taking it further and further and further. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot less than that, I think, we're called to do. And that is that a basic, and we've talked about this before, a deep respect and I'm giving value. I'm treating a person the way that God sees them, God values them. I'm going to treat them that way. And that's a decision that you make. And to me, again, we have a hard enough time liking people. We got to get way beyond that. We got to get to where we're actually going, look, I'm going to be committed to do what Jesus said. So I do think there's a difference. I just don't really know how to qualify it.
Yeah.
Listening to that, I'm realizing maybe that's why I haven't gotten my fishing invite. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
It's all right. It's all right.
It would be a very contentious day on the
lake. But going back to fishing, you're not going to catch a fish if you don't throw out the line, right?
Right.
You got to keep doing that. And I think about when we interact with others, without making contact with others, we'll never make an impact on them. And I think a lot of us sometimes dwell on, fears or reservations that we have on just, I don't really want to go out of my comfort zone and do this. And so how do we break the habit of harboring our fears and just kind of holding back so that we can go out and make a difference?
Yeah. Well, again, Clayton, I think that the reality of it is our fear, our fears are either going to grow or they're going to diminish as we live our lives. You're going to become more afraid of people. You're going to become less afraid of people. You tend to fear that which you do not know. And so I think, again, when you're talking about what are the first steps? The first steps are just start a friendship. Just start, creating just a bond. Just the fact that, hey, I know who you are. You know who I am. And just like you did when you were in the first grade, think about the first day of school. I mean, was there ever a day in your life that was more threatening that, you were young and, but I got to go into this environment. I don't know anybody. They don't know me. And, what was the last thing your mom said? Be friendly. Be friendly, as she drops you off. Be friendly. Go out there. But somehow, as we get older, we get very selective in the number of people that we choose to be that friendly with. So I think, again, you just start by, I just want to get to know you. And I think it's really important that we don't cross over the line to where I'm only interested in you because you're a project of mine. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to change you. And so I'm going to befriend you, but I've got a real ulterior motive. And I'm investing my time, but I don't really want to be with you. I don't really care for you. But now it's just pure obedience. And that's just going to get nowhere. You're going to make no difference. But to the point you just said, we don't change the world by sequestering ourselves away from people. And you certainly look at the life of Jesus. And one of the great tragedies of the church is, and this will take me just a moment, but you look at the life of Jesus, and Jesus drew people to him. The tax collectors, the sinners, the outcasts, the lepers, everyone that the society said have nothing to do with, Jesus not only engaged with them, but they literally chased after him. He was incredibly attractive to them. We somewhere in our theology have gotten this idea that, again, hang out with people that are like you, that you like, and keep a distance from everybody else. Then what happens is sinners are not drawn to the church at all. And ultimately, if at some point they're not drawn to you, they're not drawn to you, they're not drawn to me, how in the world are we going to ever influence them with Jesus? Now, again, the church is not the answer. Let's be real clear. Jesus is the answer. Mm-hmm. But Jesus' church is the vehicle that delivers Jesus to people. And so, again, if we keep to ourselves and we only, and we always refer to this holy huddle, the comfort of the holy huddle, just get all the people that get it, hang out with them. And again, there's a lot of theology that's been infiltrated into the church that just says that that's what God wanted. And, go all the way back to Genesis 12, when God chose, so he's ultimately going to choose the nation of Israel, but he's going to call Abraham. And the whole idea is, I'm going to bless you for the purpose of you blessing people. It was not an end into itself. It's not, I'm going to bless you so you're blessed. I'm going to bless you, and you're going to be the light going to be the light to the nations. You're going to be the one that brings the vehicle that brings the good news. And of course, I'm speeding through time here as we get to the church. But if you never engage, if you never take the time, you never bother to, cross that line, and that's what no contact equates to no impact. And the problem is that, again, you can talk about the Jewish nation, and this is ours, and we don't proselytize. We're not out trying to bring people in. The problem, and I once spoken in Jewish synagogue of all places on the high and holy day of Yom Kippur, and it was really interesting because there was a Q&A afterwards, and one of the people in the church, he said, "There's something I do not understand about you all," and I said, "Well, take a shot." He goes, "Why? Like, I work with this guy, he's a believer, and he won't stop talking to me about Jesus." And he goes, I'm not interested in Jesus. How do I get him to stop? And I looked at him and I said, you have to understand, you're looking at that as a nuisance. He's looking at you as somebody valuable, and he is doing exactly what his Lord and Savior taught him to do. And I talked about the Great Commission, go into all the world, and this is the calling. And he said, I've never heard that. I'd never heard that. And that was strange for me to hear because I've heard that all my life. Cross over, make occasions and opportunities, make them take advantage of these opportunities to meet people. And consequently, that's why the church has grown to the size it's grown to, is because, there's enough people who get it that, the church grows, but they're not a project. And that's a double-edged sword, very fine blade. You got to be really careful. I'm not interested in any, I don't want to become, and I was never called to become interested in people only for the sake of, seeing them come to Jesus, and then I have no more interest in you.
Yeah, it's the difference between like treating them like a checkbox, like I have to
Absolutely.
do this because I'm a Jesus
I don't
follower,
want to do this, but I have to do this.
and actually loving them.
Yeah, and I think that, again, and we're circling back. What is the great barrier? It's fear. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend that said it this way, and I've spoken. Carl Madera said, Jesus said, perfect love casts out fear. Carl Madera, my friend, said, and perfect fear casts out all love. Mm-hmm. Because we go, look, my fear is too great. And so I can't, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to love you. And really what love does is it should cast out fear, not the other way around. But we can talk about this till we're blue, but the reality of it is we're all surrounded by people we don't know. And all of those people we don't know, if we choose to see them as a threat, we will see them as a threat. Mm. And if we see them as a threat, we'll protect ourselves from them. If we protect ourselves from them, we will make no difference in their lives.
That's all good.
I think there's a question that keeps coming up in my mind that I think a lot of people might be thinking too right now is they might have somebody in their lives that has really wronged them, that hurt them in some way. Yeah. And I working in the church, I've met these people who are like, you're telling me to love them?
Yeah.
Like, how do I love them when they've done this to me? Like, we're not even talking about, like, I think generally what we're talking about here is people we might not even know yet that we need to love them because they're, no matter how different they are. But what about those people that have wronged us or have done something to us? Like, what does it look like to love them?
First off, let's say everyone's been wronged.
Yeah.
And again, let's not forget, Jesus got crucified.
Right.
Okay. And then he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. The problem when we separate a command to love with, this is a disqualifier. Yeah, but they wronged me. They did something. They hurt me. So therefore, I'm not responsible to love them. What ends up happening is that the bitter pill of unforgiveness poisons us. It doesn't poison them. And you can literally loathe the existence of another person, and while you're doing that and you're making yourself miserable, they're out playing golf in the sunshine and they're having a great day. Forgiveness is so much about setting yourself free from the debt that you feel somebody owes you. Jesus, he took our sins, he forgave us of much greater wrong, and that's of course the story of the two debtors. Something much greater than anyone's ever done to me, I've done to God. And yet, while still a sinner, Romans 5:8, God chose to forgive me. And so I think that you cannot take seriously the teachings of Jesus. It's not like he was never wronged. He didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't have anyone hurt him. None of us have had anybody hurt us the way they hurt him. Mm-hmm. And Father, forgive them. And so I think that I just think that the greatest freedom God wants to give us is the freedom to be able to love and let it go. And that's really when you won't forgive. Forgiving is releasing somebody of a debt. That's what it is. It's releasing somebody of a debt. And I look at it and I go, I can harbor resentment towards somebody. I can hold this grudge. I can do whatever, But at the end of the day, I'm miserable. They're not. And there is nothing they could do that would actually make up for it. And they can say they're sorry. That's not going to take away the pain. It's not going to take away the hurt. You can't go back in time, and I understand even as I'm saying this, some of the wounds that have been inflicted on us are deep, deep scars. They're not like trivial things. They're deep things. The bottom line is, how long are you going to let that person punish you? And they're not actually punishing. You're punishing you by holding on to it and nursing that resentment, nursing that grudge, nursing that wrong. And I think Jesus is going, get above that, get beyond that, and love for your good, which is a whole nother thing we could talk about. Loving people does far more good for you, for regardless of whatever happens to them. It does far more good in your life than you might ever do in their life.
It's really freeing, especially that fear. Like fear, it's like we talk about fear over and over again, like how that stops us from loving. Like when we are able to love and we're released from that fear, we realize, wow, how much that was a burden on our lives.
Well, fear always, again, this states the obvious. Fear always comes from an insecurity. What am I afraid of? Like, what is that person going to do that causes me to distance myself from them? I mean, there are certainly people that you should fear. I mean, let's state the obvious. I mean, people that are, I don't think that's who we're talking about either here. So let's keep that. I mean, I'm not going to go up to somebody who's known to do great harm, to people and just go, hey, how you doing? I'm going to be guarded in that. But again, that's a very, very small percentage of people. Most people that we keep our distance from are 100% harmless to us, but we create that they're evil, they're bad, they're different, they're whatever. And I'm just committed to trying to get beyond that and trying to lead a church of people to go, let's just get beyond that. And there are we will be wronged, and Jesus was crucified.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. One, I think you said something that's so true is majority of the people out there are completely harmless, completely innocent. But it's really just our own fear. But I almost see like an apathy to human connection in the sense. Before I came to Central, I was at a church in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and I lived in this apartment complex, and we were right by Apple's headquarters, but it seemed like everybody just had AirPods in or like was on their phone the entire time. And so even those normal interactions where you would just say hello to your neighbor as they're walking to get the mail or getting out of their car or doing something, those were almost like non-existent. But I think, when I think about this, I'm like, hey, they're human beings just like me. They've got a soul just like me. We share the same soul in that sense. And so, you shared a video a while ago at one of our services of these two girls who were in a class together. And on the video, you could clearly see that one was white and one was black. Yep. And, their teachers or their moms, I couldn't remember who, sat them down and said, like, hey, you two are different. But they said, wait, what? And they were completely heartbroken. And they said, no, like, we share the same soul. Yep. And we love each other. And I think that's the picture of the way we want to love people, right? And, being around just kind of a society that is very contentious on we don't love people who look different than us. Do you think even this kind of unity that we saw in just these two little girls, is that possible?
Well, I do think it's possible. So the point of that video was that there were adults trying to tell them this won't last. This is not normal. This is not, hatred is a learned behavior. Love is a learned behavior. Accepting people is a learned behavior. And the opposite is a learned behavior. And so we live in a society. So and I'm back on your Silicon Valley. Why are people running around with earbuds in, AirPods, whatever we're calling them, earbuds, whatever.
I don't know.
Whatever they're called. Why are we doing that? This is, again, a picture of isolation. This is a picture of loneliness to me. This is a picture of I don't need anybody. Who do you know that doesn't need anybody? So we put on some sort of an image that I'm secure, I'm fine, I don't, and my guess, without knowing who we're talking about, my guess is they were afraid of you. They're afraid of you, and they're not sure about you. So this is a way. In fact, I was talking to my son the other day. I walk a lot these days, and I've just made a commitment, which is kind of funny. I just made a commitment. I just decided I'm going to be friendly to everyone I pass, and I usually have a book going in my ears. I'm listening to something as I'm walking, and it's just one of these funny things because you can't see. Like I can hear, like my phone, if I wanted to, I can hear it. You can't see that. I don't have these white things sticking out, but I have these other aids that help me to understand, to hear, and. So people don't know that I literally can't hear them, but I'm as friendly as I can be. And sometimes they'll talk and I'll have to go, wait a minute, I got to stop my book. But the point is, I shock them when I'm friendly. I literally shock them. And they're like, do a double take. If we would just simply be more friendly and go more out of our way, I think we'd be surprised how many people would respond. We're taught not to. And we're taught these are the differences that set us apart. And again, I'm just walking down a canal. Somebody else is coming the other direction, either on a bike or walking. And I'm going to show myself friendly. And if they start talking, I'm going to stop whatever I'm listening to and I'm going to talk to them. And I've done that. And sometimes I get recognized. This is a whole nother funny thing. The bottom line is your life would be so much richer if it were broader in its context than comfort would tell you should make it. That's the point we're driving at. I spoke about this guy. I have a friend that lives in my neighborhood. He's a preacher in a church here in Mesa. And he's a black man, and he and I have just become really good friends. I love this guy, cherish this guy. And, at first, when we first, in fact, I think he introduced himself to me first in that case. And again, the immediate thing is, why is he talking to me? And he is doing exactly what I need to be doing, which is he's friendly, he's reaching out, he's being social. I need to do that. Anyway, all that led to what is today a really, really great friendship. But his world is different than my world. And as I've gotten to know him, and we've sat down because he's a preacher, I'm a preacher. I've been to his church, he's been to our church. We talk a lot. And my life is so much richer. That's the point. Because I had a chance to hear from his perspective things that are so different than mine. And he's helped me through things, and I've helped him through things. We're better off, being friends. And again, he's a believer, but the principle I think still holds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful picture of the unity kind of that I think God wants us to have with one another. Being a part of one another's lives, like you said, makes it a richer experience for you and for them. So, taking that down to a context for us, how does an organization like your church, Central Christian, how are you?
Not yours.
I'm a part of it. But it's really yours.
It would be our church.
Our church.
Our church.
Your
church.
So let's rephrase that. And for those who are listening and maybe don't know, how is Central and how are we starting to make strides in this process of becoming more diverse, welcoming people, different perspectives, different backgrounds, different skin colors, and just different types of culture? What are we up to these days?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're challenging the status quo. We're basically saying, what was the design that God made? And I think we even talked about this already in earlier podcasts. I believe God created one race. We as people have created, kind of a gradient, it's been parallel to a caste system. We have our man-made caste system in America, and we put people on different, we don't call them that. We don't say that out loud. But if you look at people and you say, this person is more valuable than this person is more valuable than that person, you're creating caste. And again, you'll never see that in Jesus. And so in living our lives, I think it starts with going to a church that will actually make you uncomfortable. And that's the problem. We do make people uncomfortable because we talk about this stuff and we challenge people. But if you're never taught, if you're never confronted, if you're never pushed, if you're never, again, challenged is the right word. And it's a healthy word. It's a good word. If you don't aim at something more than easy, you're always going to land on easy. And Jesus never landed on easy. And so as a church, I think it's just a matter of, let's just start putting people in different situations and let's start taking people to places. And so we, again, as a church, we do all kinds of activities that it gets us around people that we would say are different than us. And we can go all the way over to Palestine and sit with, Palestinians, and we can sit with Jewish people, and they're very, very different. We can go anywhere around the world. But I think all of that, ultimately, you bring it back home, you bring it back to where you live. And that's where we've gotten so involved in the refugee movement and just trying to get our people sitting in the homes of people from all over the world. And you just start applying the things that you ought to be doing. Most of us would benefit if we would just simply walk across the hallway from where we work. Or if you're in school, walk across the aisle and go meet somebody. Go across the street and meet your neighbors. Just get a chance, instead of, hey, you, Oh, that guy's name's Fred. I never knew that. Put the effort into it. And I've got a neighbor who just moved in. I've been wanting to meet them, and on my way here was the first time I've actually even seen them. And I thought I gotta meet them, but I can't because I'm on my way to film this. But making the effort, I can sit around and wait for them to come over and introduce themselves to me, or I could go introduce them. So as a church, we're trying to teach people, take the initiative, go across the street, go across the hall, go across the aisle, go wherever you got to go meet people.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have some homework for later. When
I do
you get
have
back
some
home.
homework.
You got a neighbor's door to knock on.
Yeah, you can ask me about it.
Those are all great steps for how we as individuals can start getting across the line and meeting our neighbors. But would you have any tips or help that you could give somebody who's maybe in charge of an organization, who's looking at this and saying, hey, I want to start being different. I want to go to those challenging places.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure it's a tip. I think, again, people are never going to do, if you're a leader and you're a part, of an organization and you have a voice in the direction of that organization, the organization's never going to go where you don't point it. It just isn't going to end up, it's not going to drift over there unless it's a bad place, and maybe then it would drift over. But if you have a good intention and a good motive and you're trying to get people to do something that's not natural, you got to model it. You got to be willing to do whatever you're asking people, because people are not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what they see you doing. And again, being able to talk about experiences that you had where it becomes a part of the culture. You guys are obviously on our staff. In our staff meetings, we have almost every staff meeting, we have what we call God moments or God sightings or whatever, in which different staff people get up and share an experience that they had where, I saw God show up here. I saw God do this. Well, when it becomes a part of the vocabulary of your organization, it starts to become a part of the culture in which you're leading, it's expected that you would have these experiences. And you guys have heard me say, and guys, if we have got no God sightings, let's not kid ourselves that we're being God's people here on this planet, because we're not, because we're just keeping to ourselves. We've got to get out and always say, I only got two sets. I got two eyes, and you got two eyes. So we got two sets between us. Okay, you are there. I'm here. You saw. I didn't see because I can't see through your eyes. You have to put it into words. So creating a culture where we share stories, we talk about, and it's incredibly motivating. We motivate one another when you hear, well, here's what my neighbor did, and then you're like going, I don't even know my neighbor, and you're like going, I should get to know them a little bit. So again, as a leader, you've got to set the direction. You have to have, and even before you can do that, you have to have a vision for it. And I think that in our church, this has been something that's been evolving over years now, and it's becoming more and more kind of the heartbeat of our church. But you got to have a vision. You got to see the world differently than it is, and you have to begin to imagine what it could be and what it should be in your belief in God. And once you see that, you start teaching it, and you start modeling it, and you start encouraging it, and reiterating it over and over and over again. And honestly, I think before long, people just go, "That's who we are." And I would hope that the love beyond the lines, which is in our culture here, this is what we refer to as our just cause. And it's that thing that when it's all said and done, this is what we want to be. This is what we want to be known for. It is our just cause. It's a little bit different than our mission, but it's bigger than our mission. We exist for the sake of loving people. And the motive to love people, of course, is, we want everyone to come to Jesus and have a relationship, grow in Him. But our just cause is to love. We're going to do this and expect a lot of pushback because people don't like being uncomfortable.
That's what I was going to ask. Is that easy? Is it like smooth sailing to switch and start loving beyond?
Well, but guys, let's be truthful. If the church, capital C church in America, would live the values of Jesus, which we would refer to as kingdom values, and not country values, but kingdom values, the country we live in would be radically transformed. It would be different. The problem is that as the culture goes, the church just tends to follow. And instead of challenging that culture and really casting a bigger vision, a grander vision is what sometimes we say around here, we're going to be like everybody else. And if the church is like everybody else, the church is going to make no difference. And again, a little cliche that we've said, which I believe is true, you cannot make a difference unless you're willing to be different. You just have to be willing to be different. I'm not going to do the way the world does it. And if the church, capital C church, would do that more seriously, the mess the world's in would not be as deep of a mess. We're complicit with it because we cooperate with it.
And sometimes there have been many churches that have helped it along too.
Well, tragically. Yeah, and again, we don't say that like, well, we never have. We probably contributed our fair share. But in the context of what we're talking about, we are trying to learn how to do this. And it is not without a cost.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Leave some room for thought there. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today for the Beyond the Lines podcast, where we record here out of Central Christian Church in Phoenix, Arizona. And our church is pursuing the mantra of love beyond, which calls us to empathize with people who are different and build bridges of peace. If you're interested about learning at all about our church, you can check us out on centralaz.com. And we have online services as well of a bunch of different locations in the Phoenix metro area if you are local as well and want to join us. So we'll see you next month for our next episode of Beyond the Lines. Until then, start walking beyond your lines.